The views and opinions expressed on this podcast is not a direct reflection of the host and his guest's current or previous employers. The topics and hot takes discussed are meant to create conversations while offering a different perspective to current issues in the strength and conditioning industry. The opinions shared on this podcast are not meant to demean or offend anyone. However, as my grandfather used to say, a hit dog will holler. Thank you and enjoy the show. This podcast is sponsored by Simply Faster. Simply Faster is an educational resource and an open platform for coaches to share best practices and firsthand insights while providing peerless technology, equipment, and service.
Hey, my name is Jacob Ramos. I am a football coach, track coach, and I run the majority of our strength and conditioning here at Samuel Clemens High School in Church, Texas. We are right north of San Antonio. We are a 6A program. Got a lot of kids from our football program that ranges 80 to about 120 with our JV and varsity, then about another 50 to 60 with our freshmen. And then we have every sport that you can imagine: football, baseball, track, soccer, girls, boys, everything. So we have a lot of athletes here. We have a pretty good amount of space in our weight room with 18 racks. Okay, cool. Normally, we try to go about 4 to 5 athletes per rack. Anything more than that, we start getting a little bit of a time constraint issue, right? People are standing around for a while. So we try to keep it 4 to 5. It keeps a good tempo going within rest periods, working periods, all that good stuff. We post all of our cards here at the top of the racks. Tells our guys, tells our athletes exactly what numbers they're supposed to be hitting at what percentage. Next to it, we got the percentage chart. That way there's any kind of question that they may have, they can address that instead of coming over and asking a coach every single time, right? Kind of put a little more accountability on their plate as far as knowing what weight they're supposed to be working on, whether it is our bench, whether it is our squat, whether it is our clean variation, whatever it might be. Going over here to the back of our weight room, a little bit of a space constraint. Our racks were bolted into the ground whenever this room was originally built, so we're a little limited there on what we could do as far as moving racks around whenever we got this new floor. But even though we have a small amount of space, we try to utilize it to the best of our ability. You know, if we're, it's an Olympic day and we got, hang clean going on, and I don't want people hang cleaning back to back, just a safety issue, we might have something that's a little bit closer into this rack working while this rack is working hang clean, and then we can flip from there. So even though it's a little bit of a tight space, we try to do the best that we can. We always have numerous coaches back here along this space just to make sure safety is a number one priority, just because it can get a little hairy back here as far as all that stuff goes. And then, even if we do have a major, space issue where you got 4 to 5 athletes per rack, it gets a little bit close. That is the awesome part about having all this space over here at the front of the weight room. That way we can send athletes this way. And whether they're, doing a body weight glute bridge, okay, hey, go to the open space in the weight room, knock out your body weight glute bridge, okay, come back, and then work on whatever that main, lift might be. We also like to use a lot of this outdoor space right here. We have this turf patch. We have this grass area on the outside of the weight room. This turf patch we'll use for any kind of like core work, med ball slams, a lot of stuff like that can be going on. We have these brick walls right here that align with our locker rooms that we'll use for med ball throws. Even used them for some, some knee drive work whenever we're kind of getting ready for some sprint action going on. Whatever we want to do. We've even got hurdles out here before to work on some hurdle mobility. We've done a lot of stuff out here with this turf patch. And then one of the coolest parts that I think we have here at Clemens High School is Linhoff Stadium is just right outside. So it's a seamless transition, right? Whenever we're going from, indoor work to outdoor work, whether it is a 20-minute rotation in here, 20 minutes outside, cool, then we flip, right? So that's helped us a lot as far as being able to get a lot of work done in a short amount of time, right? Because our athletic periods are only about 45 minutes long, right? And, whenever you got a lot of high school athletes, whether it is a big football group or it's a smaller volleyball group or a girls soccer group, whatever it might be, time is key. Okay, cool. My favorite part probably about this weight room, and this might seem like a little bit of a little thing, but it's our glorified ham, glute bridge, ab rollout rollers right here. Was able to get these from my stepmom. She is a PE coach at Coker Elementary. Got these from her. So throw these down. We can put one per rack here in the front, one per rack there in the middle, knock out whatever we're working on. We can go 2 per platform area, knock out a lot of work, but we'll throw these down. We can go into any kind of, glute ham curl. We can go, one of my favorites is that single leg ham curl, single leg glute bridge combination. Throw it down over here in the front, knock out ab rollouts, all that good stuff there. So that's been a really fun tool. I get made fun of a little bit for my scooter boards being the new age, right, strength and conditioning stuff, but our athletes love them. We can do 4, 5, 6, 10 different exercises, and they're a lot of fun to work with. And then we got our big fancy one from Powerlift right there that we'll use with some of our athletes. I think I use it more than anybody else, but it gets the job done. So this is our space. This is our weight room.
Okay, cool.
All right, everybody. Welcome to Season 1, Episode 3 of TheCrocShow. Today I have a very special and unique guest. I feel like not a lot of people are able to sit down and interview people that they've coached prior, And so, as always, I'm going to let this fine gentleman introduce himself and tell you any relevant information as far as where he's been and what he's done. So, everybody, Coach Jacob Ramos.
All right, my name is Jacob Ramos again. I am a football coach, track coach, and then I run the majority of strength and conditioning here at Samuel Clemens High School in Church, Texas. Get to work with virtually almost every team here on campus. I run all of our summer programming for our middle schools, for our high school kids. A role that I've kind of taken on as more of a volunteer, if you could say it in that sense. But I have a huge passion for strength and conditioning. I'm a graduate of Reagan High School here in town. Played for Coach David Wetzel over there. Phenomenal coach, phenomenal man. Learned a lot from him. Went on to Hardin-Simmons University.
Go Cowboys.
Yeah, Booyah Cowboys. Where I played football there for 4 years. Then right when I was done playing ball, I knew I wanted to be in strength and conditioning, so jumped straight into being a student assistant for Cade Cole. Learned a lot from him. Developed a passion for strength and conditioning even further. And then took a GA role, worked with Hagen Little for Coach Cole over there. Got into the football side of things a little bit heavier towards my end of my GA time at Hardin-Simmons. And then shortly after that, made my way back to San Antonio. My now wife, Mindy, and I moved back here when I was doing some student teaching stuff and just getting into the football education side of things more than strength and conditioning. Landed this job here at Clemens High School. Coach Jared Johnston and Coach Scott Linhoff luckily gave me my first job here. Had a lot of trust in me as a young guy to be able to take a varsity receiver's job and special teams coordinator. And then, like I said, the more, as the years have gone on, taking over more of a strength conditioning role with a variety of our sports. But yeah, my passion for strength and conditioning, I've always been a weight room guy. I've never been the biggest guy in the room, never been the fastest guy in the room, but I was damn sure going to be one of the hardest workers in the room.
For sure.
So I developed a passion for that, going through high school. And then once I got into college, my junior year, had a pretty bad injury. I had a tibia fracture that almost was all the way through my tibia. So got a titanium rod put in, got screws through through my knee. So spent that entire fall essentially working with Coach Cole in the weight room and rehabbing and getting myself right. And I saw the behind the scenes of strength and conditioning, the ins and outs and how programming works and why we do this and why we do that and why we don't go 4x10 at 90% on back squat, right? And all those little things. And so just got more into it and more into it. And, the weight room was it was an out for me, from any kind of stress, any kind of issue I was dealing with in my life. I've said this 100 times. The weight room, strength and conditioning changed my life.
Yeah.
And so I've taken that as a calling. I feel for me to hopefully impact younger athletes in the same way that strength and conditioning has impacted me. Not just physically, right, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. I've been able to grow as a person, being involved in this, and so it's been fun, man. I'm loving it. I'm loving what I get to do, and I love where I get to do that.
No, for sure. And one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on, man, it's always exciting as a coach, no matter the age. I mean, I was a graduate assistant when you were a player. Just to see somebody, get an opportunity to play football at the next level, graduate and get their degree. So many people go to college and they're there for 3, 4, 5 years playing ball and they never finish school. So to see you, finish, graduating from school, going back, getting your master's degree, finding that love for strength and conditioning, and then me being a San Antonio guy coming back to the city where you were raised and developed the love for football and everything, being able to come back to the city and give back all that knowledge and information and stuff. I want to give you kudos for that, man. That's big time. And I think that one thing you said that sticks out is through your injury, through a low point in your life, you could say you developed the love for strength and conditioning. And I feel like a lot of strength coaches aren't born growing up wanting to be a strength coach. You kind of stumble into this profession. And I think that's why, you see a lot of strength coaches stick around for so long, because it's like, I developed this love and this passion and this need to do this when I was at my lowest, or when I didn't have any other opportunities. And they said, hey, you're passionate about lifting weights. How about you, be in charge of running the weight room? And then from there, you start seeking more knowledge and information and learn that there's a whole nother society, out there of strength coaches. And so unfortunate that you had to go through that tibia break. But obviously it's led you to this and allowed you to go to school and get your master's and to seek, a high school strength and conditioning certification, which you obtained. And, just all of these things. Cause at the end of the day, we as coaches, especially high school coaches, we say, hopefully you're doing it because you're passionate about working with young kids.
Yeah.
Right. And so to go and equip yourself with different knowledge and experience and give back, you're giving those kids the best experience. And, as you said, you're coaching receivers for football and you're also doing track and field, but your passion is in strength and conditioning. That means every time that you're in the weight room, because you're passionate about it, those kids are getting the best. And it's not a shot at anybody out there that, oh, I'm a strength coach as well. But like, one thing I can say about you is, whether it's a clinic in San Antonio, whether it's a clinic outside of San Antonio, like, you're showing up, you're there. Right. And I think there's a lot of coaches out there that identify or claim to be a strength coach, but then they don't put the work in as well. And so my best analogy is like, a football coach isn't going to go hire a tennis coach to be their offensive or defensive coordinator, even if they're passionate about football, even if they watch football all the time or they played in high school. They're going to hire somebody that has a certain level of knowledge, a certain level of experience that's going to provide value to them and their staff. And so, not a knock to anybody, but I feel like there's a lot of imposters out there that, oh, I'm a strength coach. And it's like, okay, cool. Well, there was a clinic here in San Antonio and you didn't show up. Right. It was a free clinic. You didn't show up. Right. Like, how are you bettering yourself as a strength coach if you're not involved in strength and conditioning? And so that's one thing I appreciate about you. Obviously, developing that passion, but still being able to juggle being a football coach, a track and field coach, and then provide the best strength and conditioning program that you can provide. Can you talk a little bit about the team that you work with and the dynamics and stuff? Because again, as a football coaches are full of opinions about what you should and shouldn't do, and everybody has their own philosophy. And so you obviously have some sort of, I won't say power struggle, but there is a dynamic where you're a football coach first and a strength coach second. What are your kind of responsibilities and the things that you do with, whether it's with football, whether it's with track and field, or even some of the girls teams, being that your job isn't necessarily like, we're paying you as a strength coach as well as the other, teams that you're responsible for?
Right. Okay. So here at Clemens, I work with our football team, of course, being a football coach. So I'm with these guys, all year long, every day. Work with our girls soccer program, work with our track and field, boys and girls, work with our baseball program, worked with basketball as well, and it's a little difficult to talk about, like juggling all the pieces, trying to balance between, what I'm getting paid to do, what I'm hired to do, my main, what is listed on my job application.
Yeah.
Right. So just writing programs for all these different teams and trying to get into the weight room with them whenever I can, or, it might be a day where, hey, I got some extra time, soccer, hey, we're starting at 8 a.m. Okay, cool. I'm going to take the girls through an acceleration day, and go through that. But that's the one thing I'll say about our coaches here at Clemens is they've done a really, really good job of being coachable coaches, spending time with me, going over the programming. Hey, why are we doing this? Why are we not doing this? What is sport specific? What is Coach Ramos's way of meeting you in the middle?
Yeah.
Right. So they've done a really good job, spending extra time with me in the coach's office or in classrooms, demoing workouts and stuff like that. I'll get some weird looks from some kids every now and again when I'm demoing a workout in the middle of my classroom. When I'm demonstrating how to do a depth jump, and my kids are looking at me like, what is he doing?
Yeah, for sure.
Right. So just doing that, trying to balance all those things and provide the best programming that I can. I will say, kind of talking about power struggle, kind of talking about philosophy and certain things that coaches have, no knock on, football coaches. I'm a football coach.
Yeah.
But, football coaches, I would say, are probably the top in the sense of this is the way we do it. This is the philosophy. We're not going to change it. We're going to do it this way.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that over the last few years here being at Clemens, I've gotten a lot more trust and a lot more freedom to be able to personalize, change up some things that we do in the weight room, change up some things that we do in the field, whether it's change of direction, taking the grid out there.
Yeah.
Which love the grid, man. Get so much done in a little bit of time. Or it's an acceleration day, or we're taking the med balls out there and doing med ball work, med ball throws, whatever it might be. Right.
Yeah.
I'm kind of going on a little bit of a tangent now, but I've been able to kind of throw in my 2 cents, the things that I've learned going through my GA time and clinics and things like that, and adding them into what we do with our football program and still accomplishing the same goals.
Yeah. And one thing that you said too was coaching coaches.
Yeah.
Coach Jackson said some similar things on the last episode, and I think that's very important too, is just educating the coaches. Obviously, it's an uphill battle when you're trying to educate somebody that doesn't want to learn. Right. Unfortunately, football coaches tend to be the ones with a little bit bigger egos, a little bit of, this is how we've always done things. And that's a fight. And, if you're at a place that has a very open-minded head coach, then your job is, I would say, 10 times easier.
Right.
If you're at a place where it's tradition, this is how we've always done things, then it's going to be an uphill battle, especially when you're talking about, hey, we don't have to do 5 sets of 10 on power clean to get more powerful and explosive.
Like we really training power at that point?
We're not. We can do, like you said, med ball throws and jumps and things like that. Here at Clemens, your, football field, I'm looking at it right now, is right outside the weight room. So now you're talking about being in a facility where, hey, coach, we don't have to do power cleans to develop power. We can go outside and skip and jump on the field. We can throw stuff. We can develop power that way. And I think part of the problem is, and that goes back to like I was saying about going to clinics and stuff, there's a lot of coaches, a lot of football coaches aren't going to strength and conditioning clinics and conferences. They're just not, right? If they had to choose between going to see Nick Saban speak, right, or Dave Ballou, a lot of them are going to go see Nick Saban. A lot of people don't even know who Dave Ballou is. Dave Ballou's the director of strength and conditioning for Alabama football, right? So me and you are probably going to go listen to Dave speak.
Yeah.
Other football coaches are going to want to go hear Nick Saban speak. Nothing wrong with that, but that goes back to my point about like identifying as a strength coach. And so I think, like you said, coaching coaches and then going to those clinics and doing podcasts and stuff like that, it adds to your credibility because it's like, coach, I do this. I'm not just the weight room guy and I love, turn the music up. Let's get a whole bunch of weight on the bar and pour depth and get the belts out. No. Let's have a method to the madness. Let's formulate a plan, because no football coach is going to wait until August to start figuring out what they're doing in fall camp, what they're doing for their scrimmages, what they're doing for their 10-game season. They're starting that in the springtime.
Or earlier.
I mean, we just got UIL alignment in February.
Right, yeah.
So as soon as that hits, they probably already have a schedule and stuff. So if they're planning 5 or 6 months in advance, then as a strength coach, you're doing the same. You're not waiting until fall camp comes and saying, all right, I think we're going to do some GPP. I think we're going to do some type of metabolic conditioning, some metabolic circuit. Like, you've already figured that out probably April, May.
Yeah.
You've probably given them a little dose of that in the summertime. And then when August hits, you already know what it is that you want to do. And I think that, like you said, coaching coaches, and then like the power struggle with football coaches. And it's funny because, like you said, I am a football coach. Right. So you're in those rooms and you hear those conversations and stuff. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on, is because there are a lot of coaches that have to, play both sides. Right. Superman Clark Kent, where it's like, hey, I'm a football coach and I'm being paid as a football coach, but I'm passionate about strength and conditioning and I know how it should look, or I know that this could be done better. Right. But I'm also not the head coach.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do I get these coaches to understand that we don't need to do 4 sets of 8 on power clean? We don't need to test every 4 weeks. We don't have to lift heavy all the time to get stronger, right? And that goes back to, like I said, just going and educating yourself and being able to say, like, hey, look, you love Nick Saban. Well, guess what? I got to sit down with Dave Ballou. So if you love Nick Saban, you got to appreciate what Dave Ballou does. And so it's like, when I take his knowledge and information at his clinic and he presents to me and I ask him in-depth questions, now I'm presenting that to you. Well, now you have a choice to make. Do you hold on to your love for Nick Saban and take away, the things that Dave does? Or do you say, well, I can take one without the other? Because you got to take them both.
Right. Yes.
And the reason I shout out Dave Ballou, back in the day when I was at IMG Academy, he was the head strength coach there working with the football team. And so I got to work with him a little bit, and I've seen him go from there to, Notre Dame, to Indiana, and now Alabama. And shout out my boy UJ, who was also at IMG. He's one of his assistants. And so, I'm able to kind of get a little insider trading, as far as what they're doing over there. But I think that helps with, the credibility and just, having those conversations, because, all the coaches out there, there's going to come a time when you're going to have an uncomfortable conversation with the coach because, hey, they believe, like you said, sports specific. And it's okay to get on rants and tangents on here. You're probably saying the quiet part out loud. You're probably saying what a lot of people believe, but I say sports specific lifts for coaches for them to be comfortable. But in my opinion, there's no such thing. Sports specific is practice. Right.
Yes.
So if you want to, hey, coach, my baseball players, I want them to be able to throw faster or throw harder. Okay. We need to do some sports specific baseball stuff. Okay. So you're talking about doing some shoulder mobility. You're talking about doing some upper body strength. You're talking about doing some upper body plyos. I'm going to call it baseball lifts to make you feel better so you can get out of my face. But in reality, like we're upper body plyos is upper body plyos, and it's not sport specific to anybody. Obviously, your volleyball and your overhead sports, softball, baseball are going to benefit from it more than track and field. But if me calling it sport specific makes you more comfortable,
if that dings a bell for you, then by all means, let's go for it. Throw in some rotation.
Yeah,
all that good stuff. But
for sure,
that's one thing that you kind of said about doing things the way that they've always been done. We talked about this a handful of times.
Yeah.
Whenever you're in a program and you're hearing, well, we're going to do it because that's the way we've always done things. You got to look at it. You got to take a step back a little bit. You got to be open. And you said conversations. Yeah. Right. You got to be willing to have conversations with people on your staff and people that are learning, right? That are continuously trying to develop, as a coach, listen to those things, because sometimes the way that you've always done things doesn't necessarily apply to what's going on now.
For sure.
What you did possibly 20 years ago might not necessarily apply to what's going on in 2024.
Yeah.
Some things sure carry over. Some things they just do.
Yeah.
Right? How do you develop power? Yeah, we can do power cleans and all that good stuff, but some things maybe look a little different. Like you talked about, we can do stuff outside, med ball work. We can get the trap bars out, do some trap bar power pull action. We can just straight up get in here, get the jump mat out, and let's jump.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So,
and I think part of it is too is a comfort level, right? Like you said, like some people say, like, oh, it's how we've always done things. Like we call those dinosaurs, and we all know what happened to the dinosaurs, right? They went extinct, right? And I think that's what's happening in sports, and that's what's happening in strength and conditioning, is that there's a large amount of coaches, and maybe it's not a large amount, but there's a group of coaches that have have these old school mentality. If you're not puking, like, how come nobody's sweating and puking and crying? And then it's like, coach, we don't have to like bring kids to near death to get them in shape.
Yeah, you don't got to get a kid a rhabdo in order to get what you want.
Exactly. So it's like, those coaches, we call them dinosaurs, and we all know what happened to dinosaurs, right? They went extinct. And younger coaches, and not even younger coaches, I would just say more open-minded, more progressive coaches that are like, hey, I've done this certain way, but I would like more information to, how to maybe achieve things that we normally haven't done. Or like you said, like, hey, we have this football field right out here. How can we incorporate the football field and the weight room in our workouts? And, I think that a lot of coaches, and like I said, a lot of coaches, football coaches, kind of get stuck in their ways. And don't get me wrong, there's other sports that are like this, but, football coach, you got 12, 15 coaches on your staff. That's a lot different than volleyball that might only have 3.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's why I use them as an example. But I just think that, this is the way we've always done things, is really a disservice to our athletes.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, we've done this, for 20 years. Well, guess what? Like 20 years ago, you could smoke in a restaurant. Then people came along and were like, hey, you probably shouldn't smoke inside a restaurant because the air circulates in here. And if I don't smoke cigarettes and you do, and you're across the restaurant, you're smoking, I'm essentially getting secondhand smoke, and that's not fair to me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that we used to do that we no longer do because more science, more data, people that actually said, hey, look, smoking inside of a restaurant and I don't smoke, that's probably not good for my health. We should probably look into this. And then they invested money and time and, did more research and said, yeah, this is actually detrimental to your health, even if you don't smoke. And so it became one of those things where now all of a sudden they say, okay, you can't smoke inside of a restaurant. You want to smoke, you got to go outside. Right. And now the new thing is vaping and stuff. And I'm sure they're going to, if they haven't already, they're going to have restaurants that like, hey, no smoking, no vaping, none of that.
Yeah.
But I think it's really a disservice to our athletes when you do things because we've always done it. I don't care how great it is because, again, I'll use my Alabama football example. They might have done things a certain way with Coach Cochran, and they were winning national championships. And then they said, okay, we got to reinvent ourselves and we got to change it up. And they bring in Dave and they still won national championships. Now, obviously, you got to have talent, but there is something to be said about, hey, look, sometimes your program gets stagnant. We got to try something new. And I think it's human nature to seek comfort. And I think that plays into the, like, this is what we've always done. And this is how we always do things. So we're not going to change. I think we shouldn't get caught up in our wins and loss record.
Yeah.
Because just because you do, mat drills for 3 months in off season and don't touch a weight and you go out and win district every year doesn't mean that the mat drills directly attribute to you winning district. It means you probably have really good talent. And whether you do mat drills or you do an off-season program and you lift and train and test, you could still have the same results. And so I think that's huge for any coach out there that might be struggling with that coach. That's like, hey, coach, the volume is too high or the intensity with the volume that we're giving them just doesn't mesh. We should probably do something a different way. They're going to have that pushback. They're going to have that challenge. However, they have to just equip themselves with like those references. Like I said, when you throw out, hey, I talked to this top strength coach at this top program that you admire, a lot of times you get a little more open-mindedness to it because like, well, they're really good. They're really successful. So whatever they're doing, it must be working for them.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that that's huge. You also do track and field.
Yep.
How would you say working or doing track and field has helped you as a strength coach? Because I feel like as strength coaches, all we do is the weight room, but the trend now is like VBT, sprinting, feed the cats, all those different things. And obviously as a track coach, like that's what you do.
Yeah.
So how would you say being a track and field coach as well as doing strength and conditioning has better prepared you or just made you a better overall strength and conditioning coach?
Yeah, I think definitely these last 2 years of working with our track and field athletes, I work specifically with our relays, with our sprinters. And now this year I'm starting to work with our jumpers a lot more. I'd say one of the biggest things is it's kind of forced me to shift a little bit of focus more towards movement quality than anything else.
Yeah.
Like I don't necessarily need my guy that's going to be my starting leg on the 4x1 to come up here and load up 315 on his back for an ugly 2 reps.
Yeah.
Don't really need that.
For sure.
Right. It's made me focus more on, okay, movement quality. What positions are we getting into? Are we taking care of the posterior chain enough? Right. Because let's be honest, kids aren't going to go to the gym and, you know,
They ain't going to the gym.
They're not going to
stretch.
go to the gym and do glute bridges.
For sure.
They're not. They're
Yeah.
going to go and load up heavy back squats. So, right, like I said, it gave me more of a focus on movement, more of a focus on speed of movement.
Mhm.
You know, we raise up some of the safety bars, you know, put them on the pins, put it on their back, and we get in a split position and drive up as fast as we can.
Yeah.
Right, trying to replicate some of the movement qualities that can transfer over into track and field.
Mhm.
So it's kind of, in a way, forced me to step back a little bit and just kind of reflect on what is really important for their sport.
Yeah.
Like, are we trying to train them to be bodybuilders and powerlifters? No, we're training them to be athletes.
Yeah.
And that's one of the big conversations that I have with athletes all the time from all kinds of sports is, you got the rest of your life to go be a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
You got the rest of your life to go and be as strong as you possibly can. Cool. Right? But you got a short window of time. You got your 4 years of high school, and hopefully you get a little bit more going into the next level. So let's train like an athlete. Let's prepare ourselves for the sport that we're going to play. Let's prepare ourselves for our possibly one event
Yeah.
that we're going to run on a Thursday night. Right? And let's get ready for that. Just definitely help me with that.
No, for sure. And like you said movement quality. And I think that's another thing that strength coaches are starting to really understand is like, we don't need to chase numbers, right? It's cliche, but like sometimes strong is strong enough, right? Like if you're a kid, you're 16, 17 years old, you weigh 180, maybe 200 pounds, you're a running back and you're squatting to good depth over 500 pounds. Like, let's work on moving a 70% really, really fast.
Yes.
Instead of trying to go from 500 to 510.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a lot of people out there that have done studies, people way smarter than me that spend a lot more time on this, that have said like, hey, look, getting them from 500 to 510 really isn't going to increase athletic performance compared to keeping them at the 500, but maybe moving 300 really, really fast.
Yeah.
And I think, like you said, that movement quality is important, and just putting them in a position where like, we're not in here to make you bodybuilders, weightlifters, power lifters. Like, yeah, we're going to use the weight room. It's just a tool to help fuel athletic performance.
Yeah.
But like, if you don't have the greatest clean technique, but you're able to move weight really, really fast and still catch it in a good position, we're going to take that because like you said,
cool with that.
you're here for 4 years. We're trying to maximize your time. Lord willing, you're able to play at the next level if that's what you desire to do. But we're also not in here and we don't have enough time to sit down and clean up your technique on a clean to where you can go compete at the national level. Like, that's not what we're here to do.
Yeah, right.
And I think that's important that you say that and people hear that, is because so many people get caught up chasing numbers, right?
Can't number chase. Like I said, we will never number chase, or we're never going to chase likes on Twitter.
Ooh,
Never going to chase that, man.
Chasing clout. Yes.
Can't do it. Yeah. Okay. You posted a video, your kid doing a 500-pound squat, but depth was awful. Knees were caving in.
Yeah.
And is that what we're really looking for? No.
And
No.
that's another thing too. And I think sometimes coaches, like you said, they chase the numbers, they chase the likes on social media, and it's like, but we're doing a disservice to the kids, right? Like, oh, they think that what you just posted is good quality, like lifting, training, whatever you want to call it. And in reality, it's like, okay, kid's stance is too narrow, knees are caving in, like you said, his depth was awful. You got two sides, you got side spots, and they got their hands on the bar and they're helping him lift it. You got a back spot, he's got his hands on his chest, he's helping him lift it. So it's like, you got, 3 people assisting, a lift, and it's like, what are we really doing here? And I've gotten to a point where, like on front squat, we don't spot on front squat because I teach them to dump the bar, right? And there's a lot of coaches that are like, oh, you got to have spotters. And it's like, well, if you teach your kids how to lift properly and lift safely, and more importantly, you teach them how to miss, you don't need a spot. So I tell the kids all the time, if you get down there in that bottom position you get in that hole and you feel like you can't stand up, dump the bar, stand up, live to fight another day.
Yeah.
Right. And I tell them, like, when we're doing like flying tens and stuff, right? Like, if it don't feel right, don't take flight. So don't sit up here and do your flying tens and you're like, oh, my hamstrings are tight, but we got to run these flying. It doesn't make sense to pop a hamstring doing flying tens. Like, your body better than me, right? There's a difference between being like sore and being hurt, things like that. But, it's just one of them deals where, what is that we're trying to accomplish? We're trying to accomplish speed, power, strength. Okay, but what does it look like? Because if it looks like crap, and it probably feels like crap, is probably going to result in crap.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're wondering why, hey, coach, every 4 weeks we're testing, and every 4 weeks these guys are either hitting the same numbers, maybe they're hitting a little bit less. Maybe that first 4-week block they PR'd, then the second 4-week block, that 8th week they didn't PR, then that 12th week they didn't PR. Coaches start losing their minds because it's like, oh, we're not getting stronger, and it's like, yeah, but what is it that we're trying to do? Are we trying to improve? Their movement quality is shit, and it's been shit for the past 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 weeks. So that 12th week is not all of a sudden going to be great movement quality because it's the 12th week. And so I appreciate that you say that. And I think that a lot of coaches need to hear that it should be movement quality, not numbers, right? Movement over maxes. I think Zach DeCant said that best, right?
I think I tweet that out probably like once a month.
Yeah. And like, again, there's so many great strength coaches out there that follow that mindset of like, how does it look, right? It might feel heavy, but how does it look? It looks good. Let's work at that percentage. Let's work at that tempo, whatever. And let's get better at that as opposed to, you got it? Cool. Throw 20 more pounds on there.
Mm-hmm.
You got it? Cool. Throw another 20. Coach, like, we're not getting stronger because you're not going to go out there in football practice and work on tackling and have a bunch of guys diving at ankles and say, oh, well, you tripped them up. So like, that's good enough. And then on a Friday night, it's game day, and you got your guys diving at ankles and ain't nobody tackling nobody. Now you're pissed, but it's like, what have you been practicing all week? You've been practicing crap. Now you're going out there and you're playing like crap, and now you're upset, and there's nobody to blame except for you, right? So one thing, I don't know if I'm like breaking the news or anything, but got a baby on the way, right?
Oh yeah, man.
Got a baby on the way.
Yep.
I got 2 little ones at home.
Oh yeah.
One thing that I will say for me, and I think it'll like same will apply for you, is your coaching and everything is going to go up another level when you have that little boy or girl.
We don't know yet. We are waiting for the birth. My wife and I.
Y'all are brave.
Baby's due in April. End of April. So
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, good timing.
Yeah. Well, I will say, man, I think having a kid does make you a better coach. I think that it puts things in perspective as far as like your time.
Yeah.
Right. Right now, just being married, got a dog, and hey, I'll be home late. And the wife's typically she might be okay with that, right?
Yeah.
You have that baby, it's like, hey, stay late for what? Like, do you have to? And so I will say that having a baby will definitely make you a better coach in more ways than you can imagine, because you'll start to, I won't say that you don't value your time at work and everything, but it's going to hit different.
Be more efficient with the time.
It's a great way. You're going to be more efficient with your time.
Right.
Because you're going to be more efficient with your time, you're now going to demand your athletes to be more efficient with their time. So now it doesn't become hey, we're walking from the field to the weight room. Hey, we're on a hop. So instead of that 2.5, 3 minute walk, we're cutting it down to a minute.
Yeah.
Right. So now we're efficient with our time. I can say for me, how you approach and talk to kids definitely changes, because when you don't have a kid, you might talk crazy. Maybe you don't. Right. But when you do have a kid, you think about like, man, if somebody was talking to my son or daughter like that. And don't get me wrong, I jump in kids' butts all the time, but it's like right is right, wrong is wrong. So if my kid is doing wrong and the coach jumps in his butt, as a former athlete, as a current coach, my wife is a coach as well, it's kind of like, well, son, like you showed up late to your workout and the coach ripped you for it. Like I'm gonna rip you too.
I would do the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it does put in that perspective. But then you also realize too, sometimes we as coaches, we see red and our eyes turn black and we just go crazy. And it's kind of like, okay, but like, would you want another coach talking to your kid like that? And you're kind of like, nah. So I would say for me, it has calmed me down a lot. I got a little boy and a little girl. And so it has brought down my intensity, I guess you could say. But it will definitely make you a better coach. And I'm excited because, all the knowledge and information that you've obtained, all the things that you do, the extracurriculars that you do outside of your job is making you a better coach. Being a husband, now soon to be a father, that's just going to make you an even better coach. And as you continue to grow in everything, you're going to see like, man, the coach that I was 2 years ago, like can't hang with the coach that I am now. And that's what it should be about, right? It should be about growth.
Yes.
And so got a scenario for you.
All right.
Okay. You being a sport coach / strength coach, let's say that you have a sport coach that's really wanting a lot of your time, right? Hey, coach, we love what you're doing. We want you to bring our kids in 3 times a week in the morning, but we can't come in at 8. We got to come in at 7, right? So really early, and you're normally at work at 8 o'clock or whatever. And so they're wanting you to come in before hours, right? How do you handle the conversation with the coach where, yes, I want to work with your team, but I'm not getting paid for it, and it kind of cuts into my morning routine, or it lengthens my day.
Yeah.
Because you're also a sport coach. So, hey, we have track practice after school.
So
school's from 8:30 to 4:30, and then we don't get done with track practice till 5:30, 5:45.
Yeah.
I'm at work at 8. You're talking about leaving at 6. Now you're wanting me to come in at 7. Most coaches are wired like we're not showing up at 6:55. So we're probably showing up now at 6:30. Maybe 6:45.
Yeah.
How do you handle that coach that's wanting a lot of your time, but maybe it's not convenient for you?
Yeah. I would say, and I can give you the perfect example, working with our girls soccer program. I worked with them probably the most out of any of our girls sports. The girls soccer coach here at Clemens, Christian Guerra, he and I have developed a pretty good relationship over the last couple of years where he's allowed me to really customize and do whatever I want with the girls, and we hit the ground running.
Yeah.
Asks us questions here and there and has some suggestions or wants and needs. Sure. Right. Collaborate and conquer. It's kind of one of my big things that I have is like my mindset when I'm talking with the sport coach about what we want the program to look like.
Yeah.
I don't think I handled the best at first because they were essentially, we practiced football in the morning.
Yeah.
So we were starting football practice at 6:45, going to about 8:15. And the girls soccer group was starting their workout at 8. They would be going into first period. Well, the first year that I started helping them out in the weight room and working with them, I was leaving the practice field at 8:15 for football. I was coming in here into the weight room for another 30 minutes, working with the girls. And then I was hauling tail into the coach's locker room, throwing on my slacks, throwing on my polo, and then going to first period teaching economics.
Yeah.
So doing that 2-3 times a week was killing me.
Yeah.
Right. And I felt like I wasn't able to be the best coach that I could be because I was coming in maybe frustrated from the football practice, or I was just coming in tired.
Yeah.
We're in week 7 of the football season. We got to win a game to get in the playoffs. And that's what my mind is on. Then, oh crap, I got to go inside and get with the girls and I got to give them my best effort.
Yeah.
So the second year of doing that, me and our soccer coach just had an honest conversation. I was like, hey man, I'm going to provide you with all the workouts. I'm going to provide you with the cycle in advance of what we're doing. We're going to sit and talk. We're going to go over movements. You and your assistant will sit down, hash it out. Hey, whenever we're working an RDL, okay, hey, we want my back tight, we want good hip hinge, slight bend in the knee, squeeze the big toe down. Cool. If you can remember those cues, that way you're saying the same thing that I would be saying.
Yeah.
Right? That way my voice can still be heard in a way without me having to be in here. So what turned into working with that girls group 2-3 times a week turned into, okay, hey, on Wednesday, it's a little bit lighter of a football practice day. All right, I'll come in here and I'll get with y'all. But the other days of the week, y'all got it.
Yeah.
And that's coaching your coaches being accountable to, hey, if you want me to write your workout program, then you need to do this workout program how it's being written.
Yeah.
You can't look at the program that we go over and I spend hours on and go, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Yeah, I want to do that. I want to do that, but I'm going to do this instead. Well, then why are you having me do this for you anyway?
Wasting my time.
You know what I mean? Like, you're asking me to use my knowledge and my experiences to help your program. Well, then use that.
Yeah.
And so that's what I've been able to do is just frank and honest conversation. I don't have all the time in the world to be in 5 places at once. I've got a lot of other responsibilities that I'm actually getting paid for. Right.
Yeah.
I got to work for my paycheck. I got to do what my boss needs me to do. Those open conversations, those, clarity of, I could, sometimes you got to run it. Sometimes I can be there. Sometimes I can't. And then, once football ends and, I've got some more free time in the morning. Sure. I don't mind getting here 30 minutes earlier to work with your group.
Yeah.
I have a passion for this. I grew up as a coach's kid. My dad, Jimmy Ramos, was the head coach at South San High School. He was the head coach at Lee High School. I think he spent about 16, 17 years as a head coach. So I grew up in the weight room.
Yeah.
I grew up on the sidelines. So being involved in athletics and sports and strength and conditioning is just, it's how I feel like me, and not that my identity is totally invested in this.
Yeah.
Right. It's not. I think if you're somebody that your total identity is being a strength coach or being a football coach, you're missing the bigger picture in life. Right. Like my identity, and we talked about having that baby, is to be the best husband, best father that I can be. And then all the other stuff comes after that. Because if I was to get fired, if I was to lose my job for whatever reason, or if I was to quit, they're going to hire my replacement in a week.
Yeah.
They're going to have my job posted ready to go, you know. But if I don't prioritize my family the way that I should, and not being a good husband, not being a good father, sure, that's life lasting.
Yeah.
Those are things that you don't get back.
For sure.
And you were talking about, you know, being a different coach, and this kind of ties in with the not being able to give, you know, that morning group as much time, you know, with having a kid and all that stuff. You know, I haven't even had the baby, and I'm realizing that.
Yeah.
You know, I jump a kid for not hitting depth on squat or not racking his weights the way that he should, right? And then I walk away, and I'm like, damn, I kind of lost it on that kid a little bit.
Yeah.
I feel kind of bad, so I go put my arm around him. Hey, man, I'm sorry. Hey, I jumped you pretty hard. I'll be better about that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, while on the other end, sometimes kids need to get raped a little bit.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're not getting it anywhere else, so we got to be the big bad guy. But yeah, just allocating that time, being honest, realizing that you're human, can't be in a million places at one time.
Yeah.
That definitely has helped bridge that gap and made it a pretty smooth process, especially this year.
No, for sure. And you touch on a lot of different things. Like you said, having those honest conversations.
Mhm.
I think sometimes it's human nature when somebody asks you for help and you can help them in some way, shape, or form, you feel almost obligated to do it.
Right.
Right. And like you were saying, that first year, it's like, I'm trying to get ready to win a game, and it's a crucial week, and everybody's running around like chickens with their heads cut off because, you know, the tensions are high and we got to win this one. And then I have another team that's like, oh, hey, by the way, can you essentially stop what you're doing over there to come and assist us over here?
Mhm.
And again, human nature, like, I love being in the weight room. Right. And just keeping it real, like, hey, when it gets to be October, November, and you got morning practice and it's 45, 50 degrees outside and the wind is blowing and you can be in the weight room instead training, like that's not a hard decision to make. But like you said, hey, I'm being paid for football, and, you know, football practice doesn't end until 8:15, you know, so I can't leave football practice necessarily to go volunteer. Right. And I think that sometimes is a struggle for strength coaches, is because we want to help everybody, but then you realize you can't help everybody. Right. And what happens is somebody ends up getting the short end of the stick, and sometimes it works out, but sometimes it comes back around and bites you in the butt. So, like, you know, you're working with my primary job is football, but I also want to help this girls soccer team. I'm leaving football early to go in and help girls soccer. And then now all of a sudden we get to off season and I'm the only one doing laundry. You know what I'm saying? Now I'm stuck with all these miscellaneous chores and tasks that I really don't want to do. But it's like, maybe that head coach has a little bit of resentment, or, you know, has a little bit of, you know, I don't know, I don't say pettiness, but it's just kind of like, hey, look, I remember in football, you were leaving 2-3 times a week to go help another team instead of prioritizing our team. Even if it's like, hey, the last 15 minutes of practice is team stuff, and, you know, you don't really need me, or I can afford to leave. We're not doing positions, you know, position drills and stuff like that. But it's like, sometimes those coaches have that built-in animosity, and, you know, you're stuck with laundry, or you're stuck driving the bus every single week. You know, we're going to be on a rotation except for Ramos. Ramos, you're always driving. And it's like, you know, and those things, like you said, having those open and honest conversations, whether you're speaking with the head football coach saying, hey, look, you know, this is what's being asked me. Is this okay if I go and assist? They tell you, yeah, you know, but, you know, you're really supposed to be over here. Now you kind of get that feeling of like, dang, like I'm cheating football, but then this team is asking for my time and attention, and they need it, and they're receptive to it. Right. Because that's the other thing, when you volunteer and you give your time to a program or a team, and they eat it up and they use you to the best of their ability. And now you feel like, man, I'm not wasting my time. Now, hey, I know we're doing, you know, 2 lifts a week, but if you want to do a third, I'm here, because they enjoy, you know, your presence. They enjoy the things that you do for them. And so that's definitely tough as a coach, is, you know, being able to split up your time with, you know, your job responsibilities, but then also people that want your time and attention. And, you know, especially when you get into this time of the year where it's track and field, where you got a lot of practice and stuff, maybe all in the afternoon. Well, now you have that time in the morning, right? And then you also run into the problem of maybe that team that isn't as quite committed, that wants your time and attention. So you might have a sport that's like, hey, coach, I know you did this for girls soccer. Could you do that same thing for me and my program? You're like, okay, sure. And then you start doing it. And then you're like, man, your kids aren't committed. Y'all as head coaches don't show up. So it's just me and your girls or me and your guys, and half of them are here. The other half just feel like it's voluntary. So that's the other side of the coin where like, hey, I am giving you my time, which is volunteer time or whatever, but your kids aren't showing up. Like this needs to be mandatory. And so that's good that you got that worked out. Like I said, you're going to have an uncomfortable conversation with a coach if you really want to be successful. If not, there's going to be some type of tension, side eye, whatever the case may be. And you're going to end up kind of driving a wedge between your job and your mental health or your work-life balance or whatever, because you're just like, man, I really want to help this team, but I don't have the time to help them. And like you said, like, okay, I'm going to coach coaches. This, you want my services. This is what we need to do. And this is what needs to be done. This is the language that needs to be spoke, the cues and everything, the setup. That way, if I can come in and assist, I'm not, hey, no, we don't set the RDLs up on the floor. We set them up on the catches, right? I don't want you having to pick the bar up off the ground to do your RDLs instead of picking up, oh, well, coach, we always, cool. That's where you said like coaching coaches and stuff. And so I think that's really important for coaches to hear and to understand. And if we're being all the way real, especially at the high school level, not many high school coaches are going to work for free.
Yeah, no.
They're not. So it's like, again, back to that, that conversation, like, hey, coach, I'm not being paid for this. So I'm doing this pro bono. I'm doing this for the love of the game, right? I enjoy doing this. So I'm going to help you, but they got to meet you in the middle. So there has to be that level of commitment. There has to be that, okay, I'm going to be present. I'm going to take role. I'm going to make sure all of my girls are here. So that way, when they do show up, you're not dealing with 15 out of 30 girls showing up for, before school workouts, right? So most people aren't going to work for free. You're not going to work for free. Your time is important. Their time is important. So that's always good. Like you said, you have those conversations. Right. So, normally at the end of the pod, man, if you have any questions or anything for me, ask away. I know a lot of people do podcasts and they do all the question asking and stuff, but this is just an opportunity for us to have conversations and stuff. So if you have any questions for me, man, anything you want to know? Okay.
Definitely, my question to you, and something I wanted to ask you for a while now, being a new strength coach at a new school, how long have you been at Vets?
It'll be 2 years in April.
2 years in April.
Yeah.
So whenever you got there, what are some of the do's and don'ts that you think for someone who is starting a new strength program for the first time, where in the past it's just been sport coaches running the show? Now you qualified. This is what I'm hired to do. What are some of the do's and don'ts? What are some of the tips that you might have for somebody that is starting a new program?
So for me, I was very fortunate that my boys and girls coordinator, so in my district, we have an athletic director. We have 3 high schools. Each high school has a full-time head strength coach, and they also have a boys and girls coordinator that they report to. And so I was very fortunate that on the boys side, my boss, my boys coordinator, Coach Irvin, was like, hey, this is Coach Croc, head strength coach. He's running strength and conditioning. And all the boys coaches got it, right? Girls side, similar thing. Hey, ladies, this is Coach Croc. Shout out to Coach Mulkey. Hey, ladies, this is Coach Croc. He's our strength and conditioning coordinator. He's going to be running the weight room. So y'all make sure y'all give him y'all's teams, and, he's going to run the weight room. And a majority of them were like, all right, cool. Like you said, you do have the coaches where it's like, well, I've always ran my program and stuff. And so I would say a do is get the blessing and endorsement from your boys and girls coordinator, but like in front of everybody. Right, so like if you're sitting in a staff meeting, and that's what happened with me, we have 14 football coaches, and out of the 14, I think 4 or 5 of them are also head sport coaches of like baseball, track and field, wrestling. So we had assistant football coaches that are also head sport coaches. So in front of 14 male coaches, the boys coordinator was like, this is our guy. This is who I hired. He's running our stuff.
Yeah.
And everybody was like, all right, cool.
That's pretty special.
Exactly. So shout out to Coach Irvin for that, right? Yeah. So instantly you're talking about baseball, wrestling, boys track, who else? Also assistant. I mean, our boys, our basketball coaches, don't also coach football. They're kind of a separate staff.
Yeah.
But all of the male sports essentially were told, like, this is our guy, this is who's in charge. And then fortunate for me, our boys basketball coach is like, oh man, we got somebody knowledgeable I can learn from. Like, coach, like, what are we doing? And he's the type of coach that's like, hey, we're not going to be with y'all during this time, but like, can you take me through what you did so I can then take my boys out and do kind of like you were saying with your soccer coach. So that helped. Girls side, similar. To the, you know, hey ladies, this is who's in charge. Everybody's got an opinion, right? And I think it was more so of like the comfort. So I don't think the girls coaches weren't necessarily receptive to me. I think it was more so of like, I've never seen this before and this is different. And people don't like change. People don't like, you know, hey, look, we're going to do a complete 180 and do, you know, we're not doing the, hey, workouts on the sheet or workouts on the whiteboard. Y'all got 20 minutes to do it. No. Hey, you got these 5 exercises to do. I'm giving you 2.5 minutes on my stopwatch. You better be done in 2.5 minutes. Set one, blow the whistle, let's go. They're kind of like, well, we normally give them. Exactly. Yeah. So having the public endorsement, and I say public, having the public endorsement of your boys and girls coordinator or your athletic director basically saying, this person is in charge. This is what they're paid to do. Let them do it. That won over 95% of my coaches. So to this day, I haven't really had any coach that's like, hey, I don't like what you're doing. Can we do something else? It's more of like, hey, I don't understand what we're doing and I don't know how this is helping us. Can you elaborate? And I tell any coach, like, anytime you have a program, it should be your program. You should be able to defend it top to bottom. So if you're going from your warm up or activation to your movement prep to your lift, to the lifts that you selected, to the progressions, regression, like you should have a rhyme and a reason for all of that. So if somebody questions you, put your ego in a box. Don't don't be offended. And say like, hey, the reason why we front squat and don't back squat is because of A, B, and C. And you almost kind of got to be an asshole about it in a sense of like, this is what we're doing because this is what I believe in. If you see that something should be done differently, you better have a damn good reason as to why we shouldn't do it. If not, I'm not changing it. So you gotta have that hard stance. So those are the do's. The don'ts, and I learned this in my time in college. I haven't really had the problem in high school. You don't want to go out there like Mr. Big Shit popping. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to go in there like, I'm smarter than everybody in the room. Everybody's an idiot and nobody knows what they're doing. I'm in charge. Because what you're going to do is you're going to turn people off. And it's like we were talking about earlier, like the clout chasing and all of that. Like nobody really wants to hear that. Nobody wants to be told that they're stupid. They're, you know, hey, what y'all been doing for the past 3 years that you've been here is stupid. It's dumb. It doesn't make any, they don't want to hear that their program sucks. You know what I'm saying? It might suck. Everything is 3x10. We got back squat, front squat, overhead squat, RDL, clean pulls, bench press, overhead press, incline press, 3 sets of 10. You got 15 minutes to do it. That is a dumb workout. Right? But nobody wants to be told to their face that it's a dumb workout. Right? So I would say the don'ts are be mindful of your words, because if you're sitting there saying like, this is a trash program, you don't want to say, hey, we're not doing this trash program anymore. Because if I wrote it and I'm sitting in the room while you say that, I can get in my feelings. I can feel a type of way. Instead, kind of, hey, we're going to change the way we do things and use the I word a lot. That way you kind of separate yourself. We're going to change the way we do things because I believe this works best. I believe this will give us the best results. I believe this will put us in the best position to be successful. And that way you don't step on anybody's toes, because, you know, there's a lot of coaches that when their feelings get hurt, you're on their shit list for a long time, and it's hard to get off of it, no matter how much good you do.
You got to have good relationships.
Got to have a good relationship. So I would say, you know, the dues come in, get that public endorsement from your boys and girls coordinator or your athletic director saying, this is the guy, this is what he's paid to do. Right. Also put yourself on the same field as far as like the athletic trainers, right? Nobody goes into the training room and says like, hey, Jacob's hurt and it's been 2 weeks. Why isn't he back yet? What is it that you're doing for rehab? Why? Nobody goes into the AT's office and starts, you know, pointing fingers and demanding results. Instead, they let the athletic trainer do their job. The same respect has to be given to the strength coach. And I use that analogy a lot because they all think that like, oh, I'm not an athletic trainer. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm talking about. So I'm gonna let them do it. But like when it comes to strength and conditioning, oh, I know how to lift weights. I know how to do speed work. And it's like, yeah, but there's levels,
It's different.
right? It's different. And so that's a do. Also be prepared at all times. So one thing that I did when I was, I was at Randolph. I wasn't in charge of strength and conditioning, but they knew my background. And so I actually had a, off-season work. No, I had an in-season plan because it was in September. So I had an in-season workout for everybody. And when the AD was like, "Hey, if I put you in charge of, this program, what would you do?" And I literally went to my office. I pulled out. It was already printed, ready to go.
Mhm.
This is the workout card that I would install day one. This is what we're doing on day one, day two. If you want a 3-day split, I have a 3-day split as well. I brought that with me, right? And so now I'm showing not only a certain level of preparedness, but I'm showing you that like we can start this thing today. Because sometimes coaches are impatient, right? They're not going to say, "Hey, you're going to be in charge of the program, but I want you to start in March." No. It's February 17th. Like I need you to start on Monday, right? And you can't sit there and say, "Oh, well, now I got to spend all weekend to prepare." Like you should already be prepared. So have what it is that you would do day one. Have your phase 1, your phase 2. I do 4-week blocks. So that's 8 weeks, right? I already know off the top of my head if I needed to go to a phase 3, what I would do. But when you present to a coach, this is my 8-week plan, right? And this is what we're doing on day 1, day 2. If you want to do a 3-day split, this is what's day 1, 2, and 3. This is how much time it's going to take. This is how people are going to be broken down and organized. You basically just made that coach comfortable enough to say, "Here's the keys to the Lambo." Like, I don't even have to tell you, don't crash it, because I just know and I trust you're going to do the right thing. Get the job done. So definitely having that plan, that day one plan, knowing different coaches. So you might have like track coaches, speed and power. That's what they love to hear. Baseball coaches, upper body strength, upper body mobility, take care of the shoulders, rotation. Volleyball, healthy shoulders, healthy knees and ankles. Like you say those certain trigger words, they're going to instantly buy in because they think about, okay, I'm a volleyball coach. Oh, you're going to reduce shoulder injuries. Well, we had a lot of shoulder injuries, right? We're going to reduce ankle injuries. We're going to barefoot squat, right? Single leg holds, ankle strength, ankle mobility, right? Soft tissue in the hips.
We're going to take care of the soleus.
Exactly. They're like, "Okay, you got them, coach." You could be doing the same program for track and volleyball, but the way that you word it makes them feel more comfortable. So I would say that's another
There's your sport specific.
There's your sport specific. Like I said, the don't come in there with your ego all out and your some people on social media, you got all them letters by your name. Like they don't care about that, right? They don't want to hear it. Also, don't like publicly, like, "We ain't doing this old crap like we used to. We ain't doing this track." Because they're probably the ones that either put it together or they're the ones that's running it. So don't publicly shame them. I would say another don't go in off rip like, "This is what we're doing." Right. "Hey, coach, what is it that you need?" Because again, so like what I do, I run a universal program. So like everybody does the same thing. The only thing I really change is like your intensity and your volume because in season versus off season. But like right now, my in season program, girls soccer is doing the same thing that boys soccer is doing, that baseball is doing, that softball is doing. The only difference is like, hey, instead of, for example, instead of bench press, we might do 1-arm dumbbell bench because we're in season, right? But everybody's still doing a lateral press. So it's one of those deals where like, don't go in off rip like, "This is what we're doing." Go in like, "Hey, coach, what is that you need? What is that you've seen?" "Oh, I've noticed like, let's say you're dealing with volleyball. I noticed we lack a lot of the explosiveness, right? Our girls don't jump very high." Cool. I already have the program that volleyball is doing, but I'm going to sell you on, well, we're going to do shin boxes for hip mobility. We're going to do a Saigon squat to ham to increase, flexibility in the hamstring and the glutes. We're going to do some type of plyometric exercise every day. So that way we're working on purely just putting force into the ground and improving our vertical jump, right? We're going to do a vertical emphasis and maybe a, lateral emphasis. So maybe one day we're doing counter movement jumps and then the second day we're doing skiers, right? That's the same program that I'm doing with baseball. The only difference is for baseball, hey, coach, we're working on rotational power. So we're going to do some type of lateral plyometric, right? But we're also have to work on our vertical emphasis. So we're also going to do counter movement. It's the same program. It's just dressed up in a different way.
Yeah.
But again, I do a universal program. So I go, what is it that you need? I already know what we're doing.
Yeah.
Right. But then I'm going to take different pieces out of my program and sell them to you. So that way you say, okay, because again, you got to come prepared.
Yeah.
So I already got my day one. Hey, we're front squatting, we're hang clean pulling, we're doing a half kneeling landmine press, we're doing an inverted row. Like those are my big four, right? No matter what program that I'm working with, we're doing those big four, but I'm going to sell different pieces of those. So, hey, we're going to front squat because, hey, we got to work on lower body strength. And, I don't like to back squat. I like to front squat because of these reasons. Okay, cool. And then another program, hey, we're overhead. We're going to start with a half kneeling so we can develop that upper body strength and that coordination. And then we'll move into, a split stance. And then we'll move into a push press to get a little more dynamic. And it's the same exact program, but I'm selling different parts of it to that coach. So I already know what it is that we're doing. I know how we're going to do it. And I'm selling different elements of that to you. So that way you feel comfortable. And then as we build that rapport, then I sell different pieces of the program. Like, hey, look, inverted row. We want to pull more than we press. We're talking about posture. Everybody's walking around on their phones like this.
Rolled
So it's like,
shoulder back.
yeah. So it's like now I'm able to sell different parts of the program. So now volleyball isn't paying enough attention to even realize that they're doing the same exact program that girls soccer is doing. Same exact program.
Yeah.
So I would say
and that goes back to what we were talking about is like as far as movement.
Yeah.
Like yes, certain sports are going to need certain movements over others. Sure.
Yeah.
Right. Talking about rotational overhead sports and all that stuff. But man, movement is movement.
For sure.
And that's where I think a lot of strength coaches and a lot of sport coaches can get a little bit lost and get a little bit overwhelmed when they're trying to customize everything so specifically to volleyball, soccer, baseball, basketball, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, movement is movement. At the end of the day, these kids are likely probably playing two sports as well.
Yeah.
So,
Or playing year round.
Or playing year round.
Because they're playing club and all of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would say, those are the do's and the don'ts. Not to get on a tangent, but public do's, get publicly endorsed in front of all of your assistant coaches, head coaches that like you are the guy and it's your show and you're running it. Also have them, like I said, publicly endorse you, have a plan, make sure day one what we're doing for phase one, phase two. I use a universal program. Some people like to write separate programs for different sports, but again, we talked about movement like squatting, hinging, pressing, pulling. We can make different modifications, but everybody's doing the same thing and I'm comfortable with it. I know how to explain it top to bottom and I have data and science to back it up. And then the don't go in there with your ego on full display and throwing around your credentials and your lettering and the letters by your name. Also, don't start publicly crapping on everybody's program because they might be in the room and they wrote it and they think it's the best thing ever. And you just crapped on them. So now they got this bad taste in their mouth about you. And then also, just understand that it's going to take you years to build your program. And I'm going on my second year and each semester is a new challenge and I have plans and obviously be adaptable. But, what I'm doing right now in February 2024 compared to what I did in 2023, is completely different. And what I did when I started in 2022 isn't even close to what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
And again, we're talking about I'm at a school that's never had a strength coach before. So I built the program and each year I'm doing new things. My first year, I got a program for basketball. I got one for volleyball. And, some of the programs, maybe out of the 10 exercises, 6 out of the 10 are the same. And then as I progressed, I'm like, this is too much work to write. We got 14 varsity. It's too much work to do 14
one person for 14 different.
Exactly. So I finally transitioned, the fall of 2023 to more of a universal program.
I like that a lot.
And it's helped. And like I said, you also typically have coaches like, our DB's coach is also our baseball coach, right?
Yeah.
Our linebackers coach is also our head boys track coach. So now you have, I'm training football, teaching them all the things that we're doing here, but I'm also teaching the head track coach, the head baseball coach, our wrestling coach. He's also assistant football coach. So now I'm using a universal program. So when they hear me say like, hey, hip width apart, they know what hip width, hey, +1, right? So we're talking about when we're squatting, feet are shoulder width, 1 inch outside of shoulder width. That's what we call +1. So now they hear me say +1 in football. They also say +1 in wrestling when they're lifting. They also say +1 with track and field when they're lifting, with baseball. So kind of like you're saying, coaching coaches and things like that. So now my mental health has improved greatly because I'm not scrambling. Okay, football's on front squat, basketball's on a regression doing hands-free front squat. Girls soccer is doing front squat holds supersetted with a goblet squat. Girls basketball is doing goblet. Now I'm not running around going crazy because they're squatting, but they're doing 4 variations of squat. Now it's like, hey, everybody's starting goblet squat supersetted with a, front squat hold. And then everybody's transitioning to hands-free front squat. And then everybody's going to, front squat holds with, 5, hands-free front squat or whatever. And then they're transitioning. Now everybody's on the same progressions. And, with the exception of like football, volleyball, and cross country, because they start before everybody, that's only 3 teams that are doing that in August. And then when everybody starts in September, they're starting on pretty much phase 1 while the other 3 teams go to phase 2, but they're still doing the same stuff.
Yep.
So that's something that I would say as well.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
I think if there's anything that I could add on to that, as far as some do's, just from the outside looking in, I'm in it, but I'm also not totally in it, being that I'm football first, strength and conditioning is my kind of secondary thing.
Yeah.
Is developing a good relationship with your athletic trainers. That is huge. And that's kind of my recommendation to anybody out there, whether you're a football coach, a basketball coach, sport coach, strength and conditioning coach, especially. Developing a close relationship with your athletic trainers is huge, because you, as a strength conditioning coach, and your athletic trainer are spending more time with these kids than almost anybody else. You're spending more time with these kids than their parents are.
For sure.
Right. And so when you can be on the same page with your athletic training staff, as far as, hey, what are we going to do for this kid that sprained his ankle? What's going to be our process to get he or she back to playing? Right. Because that's the goal, right? Trying to get back to, what matters.
Yeah.
We heard that at UTSA. Keeping the main thing the main thing.
Yeah.
We want to get the kid back from injury so that they can go and squat again. But no, the real priority is let's get the kid healthy again so that they can go play their sport.
Yeah.
Like our trainers here, big shout out to them, Crystal Saunders and John Housby. They do a phenomenal job with our athletes. They do a phenomenal job communicating with me as far as, hey, so-and-so did this. They can't do this, this, and this, but hey, we know that you can modify and you can change some stuff. So, okay, cool. Right. Hey, he sprained his wrist, long jumping last night. He can't bench today. Okay, cool. Let's go knock out some single arm. Let's get some core work in. Yeah. Right. And then you touched on the mental health and how that's improved with simplifying things and going with the more universal program. That's kind of one of my big, kind of things I want to throw out there to coaches, listening to this right now, whether you're strength and conditioning, whether you're a sport coach, whether you're a top dog, you're an AD, you're a principal, whoever's listening to this is, man, take care of your mental health. That is huge, because no one knows what you're going through
for sure
internally besides you.
Exactly.
You got to take care of that stuff, because if you don't, it gets away from you, and it can now start to affect your work, affect your attitude, all that stuff. And, we live in a world, and, not dogging on football coaches at all. I am a football coach. Yeah. But we live in a world of bottle up your feelings, put them in your pocket, don't show emotion, no days off, grind, don't stop, all that stuff that you hear. Right. But man, we're human. We are human. It's okay to feel anxious. It's okay to feel a little bit worried. It's okay to feel a little bit nervous about something. Shit, if anything, it means that you care. Yeah. That's something my dad always used to tell me when I'd be nervous before a middle school football game. He'd be like, man, I'm glad you're nervous. And I'm sitting there looking at him sideways like, what? He's like, it means that you care. Yeah. It means that you want to do right. It means that you want to do things well. So, man, taking care of your mental health is huge. No, whether it's just taking a day here and there to kind of reset your brain, whether it's putting on your AirPods and going and take the dogs on a walk. That's my deal, man. Whenever I'm feeling a little bit, like everything's going on at one time and I can't really slow things down, get the dogs, throw on my AirPods, go on a walk, clear my mind. That's good. So taking care of that mental health. That's good. You got a routine too. Yeah, no, for sure. My wife has helped me with that big time. Shout out to my wife. I hope she listens to this. Who knows? She better listen to this. I hope she listens to this. Yeah. Shout out to my wife, man, Mindy. She's been my rock, man, since day one. And, she's helped me, through my introduction into coaching and stuff like that. And, high times, low times. She's been been my number one supporter. So big shout out to her.
Yeah, no, for sure. And shout out to my athletic trainers, man, Coach Lawson, Coach Potter, man. I mean, like you said, they definitely, you got to work with them, and we typically work with our kids more than they do at home. I mean, they're at school for 8+ hours plus practice, so they're outside of their home for 10 hours a day, and whether they're spending 25 minutes with you in the weight room or they're doing treatment or whatever, like they're still away from home, away from their parents. And then you're talking about they might get home at 5:30, 6 o'clock, but mom and dad don't get home until 7:38.
Yeah.
So, they high and bye to mom and dad, but they see their coach 3-4 hours out of the day because maybe you're teaching, you're seeing them at practice, you're seeing them at weights, you're seeing them in the cafeteria, you're seeing them in passing periods or whatever the case may be. So, shout out to my ATs. Like you said, that relationship is important. And then like you touched on, like the mental health, and sometimes you just got to get away. I mean, I've definitely had times when I'm like counting down the days to Thanksgiving break because it's a grind. Like you said, they tell you to bottle up your feelings. And, if you're a football coach and you do strength and conditioning, especially, like you go all summer, you're grinding, and then you got fall camp, and then school starts, and you got scrimmages, and it's like,
it's hard to stay at that high level of intensity all the time.
And then if you're fortunate to go to the playoffs, that's an extra week, and then you go to the second round. I mean, my first year at my school, we went and we practiced for the first time in school history. We had a game during Thanksgiving break. So during Thanksgiving break, we didn't have school. We still had practice. We still had weights and things like that. So it's just like, and we started really in June for summer strength camp. So no, that was a great question. Hopefully, that helps any coach out there that's having. Me personally, I would rather go to a place that's never had strength and conditioning than to take over, because then you're talking about breaking bad habits, creating new ones, versus like your sport coach has done things this way, but now you have a strength coach. So now, for a high school kid, they're able to kind of separate their sport coach and a new strength coach versus they had a strength coach. He did things this way. Now a new strength coach comes in and it's like, we ain't doing none of this. We're doing it this way. Now it's like, man, that is a uphill battle. And I still fight the battle today, getting kids to do what they're supposed to do. But it's a handful of them. And to be honest, the kids that are like screwing up or not doing what they're supposed to do are probably the same kids in the classroom, in practice. So it's not like it's an isolated issue where it's like, they're great in everything but the weight room. So, no, that's a great question. You got any more for me? Let's see, any more softball questions, hopefully?
Man, it's one of those where I feel like I had a bunch of questions and now we're sitting down and we've been talking for a while. Some of them are kind of starting to space out a little bit.
I feel you.
Aside from Olympic movements, what are some of the biggest ways that you develop power with some of your kids?
Sprint.
I
was fortunate.
Love it. That's what I was hoping to hear.
Yeah. So I was fortunate that at my school, again, I got the endorsement from the coordinator. So it's like, if I need equipment, I fundraise, but then I'm also able to say like, hey, I need this. And because it's going to be used by everybody, the coordinators are like, hey, we're taking money out of your account to help fund this because everybody's going to use it. So I bought a just jump mat and I bought a dasher timing gate system. And so we test vertical. We used to do it a lot last fall. Haven't done it as much.
How often are you doing it?
It just depends. I actually incorporate it in the workout because I feel like technology should drive intent and not the other way around. And so what I would do is like, let's say they got block A and they got 4 or 5 exercises. Maybe that 3rd or 4th exercise is just jump mat. So they go over, everybody, we got 8 racks. So, that's 8 groups of 4, maybe 5. So 40 kids in there. So there'd be 8 kids having to get a single jump mat in. And from there, we'd have a coach. He'd hold on to the just jump mat. You jump, hey, 28.3. Next, 25. And then that would be your one jump. And then when you came back around, you try to beat it. And then it got to a point where they were competing, but it became more of like a game as opposed to like, hey, there's eight groups. Why am I looking at 10 guys lined up to do their just jump mat? There should only be 8 of y'all, right? So then it became one of those deals where I had to take it away. And so I typically test every 4 to 5 weeks, but it's a sub max test. So we'll do like a 2-rep max, or a couple weeks ago, we do percentage based training. We ramped up to 90 to 95% for a single, but I didn't go like 100, 105%. I didn't want a new max. I wanted to see if you were able to hit your training max. So that was our test. And then we did just jump mat. And so every 4 weeks, I'll do some type of sub max testing. at the end of the school year, or I should say like end of the fall semester. So December, we'll do like a 1 rep max on our hang clean. We'll do a 2 rep max on a front squat, on a trap bar deadlift. I don't bench press my kids, so we don't test on that, but we'll do our just jump mat. We'll do our flying tens. And then, you're talking about developing power. We'll use our dasher. So that was something that I was able to kind of finesse where, hey, I'm putting in $300-400. Track and field, can you give me 100? Football, can you give me 100? Soccer, can you give me? So now I was able to get about 4 or 5 teams to give me the difference. So I bought that. We do flying tens. Sometimes it's a part of our workout.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a part of our testing. I mean, we'll go on the football field and I'll set up cones, on the, start on the goal line. We'll build up 15. I normally go 5, 10, 15, 20. So we increase the, the fly.
Yeah.
But it's still a 10-yard split. And then we'll work the 20-yard build up into the 10-yard fly for maybe 2 weeks. And then that third week, we'll bring out the dasher and we'll test. But I'm a big proponent of sprinting.
Yeah.
There's been times where like I trick kids. I'll put the dasher out there and I'll let them run through it. And sometimes I don't tell them their time just because when you start bringing cameras out and lasers out,
it's going to drive the intent.
Exactly.
Intent
and
is
so
huge.
That I get more intent from there than I do if we put the cones out on the field and we're doing the flying tens. And I've even had kids where, we've gone through like a speed camp I've done, and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we did flying tens. Thursday, we bring out the dashers. They run 1 or 2 reps and they're like, my hamstrings are tight. And that turned the light bulb on for me that y'all aren't running as hard as you can on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday when we did 3 flying tens, right? There's no reason your hammy should be tight. Now all of a sudden we got the dasher out. And so the just jump mat helps me with that. The dasher, the flying tens. I love throwing stuff. So like whether it's a RDL scoop toss or an overhead toss, one thing I'm starting to get away from is grabbing like the heaviest med ball. Because don't get me wrong, throwing that 8-pounder like 50 yards is great, but I also don't want you to grab the 15-pounder and only throw it 15 yards, 20 yards.
Sloppy.
Exactly.
So the movement quality is out the door.
Yeah. So I'm debating on when I buy my next round of like equipment and stuff, if I'm going to buy like more 8s and 10s and less 13s and 15s. Because when I got to my school, we had, 5 8-pound med balls, but then we had like 6 or 7 of the 15s and the 13s. And it's like the movement quality didn't look good, right? You're compensating because you don't have the strength or you can't get that extension like we want. And so I think the next time I buy the rubber med balls that we can throw, I'm probably going to opt for like 8 or 10.
Yeah.
And I think about like in terms of like on a football field, hey, we're trying to throw this med ball from one sideline to the other. You're probably going to have better success with an 8 or 10-pounder than you do with a 13 or 15. I do have a couple of kids that they probably do need that 13 or 15. That's a couple of kids. I train about 400 athletes.
Yeah.
10 kids, I'm not spending money on, to buy 4 or 5, 13, 15-pound med balls. Yeah. I'm going to go buy the 8s and the 10s. So throwing things, sprinting, jumping. I love bounding. I love skipping. It drives me crazy because it takes us a long time to get it to a point where we can bound and skip because kids are uncoordinated. A lot of them are.
Same arm, same leg.
It drives me crazy.
Almost falling down.
Yeah. I do love Olympic lifts, but I'm not going to say I've gotten away from it. But there's definitely been times when I'm like, you know what? Screw the catch. We're just going to clean pull.
Love it. Yeah.
We're just going to clean pull because we're trying to get the triple extension. And if the catch is the limiting factor, I would rather you do a 185 clean pull and get triple extension and get both feet off the floor than to do a 135 catching it with your feet in a Saigon squat stance. Yeah, like one elbow's through, one elbow's down here.
Here to here.
Yeah, you're driving it up. Like I don't want that. And so our kids are starting to understand that and see the importance of it. Yeah. And then, like I said, I'm fortunate to have the technology to drive the intent. Yeah. I would love to get some type of like Tendo or velocity-based training, deal, but those things are expensive.
Oh yeah.
We're broke.
No, we don't have anything for that either. The way in the weight room that I've been able to measure that is by sound. Yeah. Sound and feel.
Hear them plates rattling at the top.
When we're benching or we're squatting, I need to hear the plate rattle at the top.
Mm-hmm.
And I start hearing plates rattle and I'm getting fired up and then they're getting fired up and then the intent's getting driven through the window. And but Clemens athletes, I hope you're listening. Coach Croc is saying you don't have to just do Olympic lifts to develop power.
Yeah. Especially if you suck at it, right? Because then we're not getting quality. It's like, if you play basketball and your 3-point percentage is like 10%, you probably shouldn't shoot threes. Versus if you're 10 feet and in is like 60%, you should probably shoot the ball from 10 feet and in. And so putting kids in a position to be successful.
Yeah.
And then also, like you said, like I think we get caught up in like Olympic lifts, the end all be all. Like I wish I had plyo boxes so we can do more depth drops and things like that. Or not even depth drops, but like get hurdles and jump over the hurdles, right? Just to drive that intent, because I think a lot of times kids get caught up in like, oh, I'm moving a lot of weight, but then you look at that power curve and it's like, yeah, it's going up, but then it's immediately going back down because the weight is too heavy and you're not producing enough force to develop that power. So it's like, let's put our kids in position to be successful. You're either jumping over this 42-inch hurdle or you're not. If you're not jumping over it, a couple of things. Either one, you don't have the power or the vertical jump to be able to clear the hurdle, or two, your mechanics or something are wrong where you're not getting a good counter movement to really get you up and over the hurdle. But those are things that you can do in your weight room. When I was at Randolph at 3A high school, we pulled the benches out and we would do hurdle hops over the bench because we had a nice open space where it was like, okay, y'all can all line up, all 25, 30 of y'all, and you can do a hurdle hop over the bench or, a step up and hurdle hop. So you're stepping on the bench, depth drop into a vertical jump, and then you're going into the next one where now our benches are flush. Like we didn't have the ones with the wheels and stuff. So now we can have two guys almost going at once. They can be on opposite sides. So now you got 5 benches, you got 2 guys going, step off, jump, then you're going to the next one. Then you got another 2. So in those 5 benches, you got 10 guys going essentially at one time.
Yeah.
And so that 30 doesn't seem as big and it doesn't take as long. And so now you're rolling 30 guys through, depth drop into a counter movement jump. They're getting 5 jumps. They're going through it 3 times. So now they're getting 15 jumps, and that's taking you 3 or 4 minutes, but you just got some explosive work. And then now you add that element of competition where maybe you grab a PVC pipe and you're holding it up for them. Hey, go get that PVC pipe, right? Or maybe you're standing on a box somewhere and you're like, hey, touch my hand, right? And now you're driving that intent because you'll get kids. I tell kids, grab the lights. We got high ceilings kind of like here.
Yeah. So
grab the lights.
Yeah, I tell my kids, try to hit your head on the ceiling.
Yeah. Hit your head on the ceiling, grab the lights, and you look and you're like, okay, that light fixture is about 15 feet, off the, above ground. Like they're getting up there.
Yeah.
And even if they're not even close to, you could probably assume that they're putting more force into the ground and their intent is a lot higher having to jump up to touch that light fixture than it would be if you were outside. Go grab a cloud, go grab clouds.
Yeah.
You're never going to grab a cloud. But if the intent is to jump into grab a cloud, that's a lot better than just like, hey, we got counter movement jumps, on my whistle, jump.
Oh, and then how are they really
jump? Yeah. So
we use one of the other things is that we have these lights in here in the weight room. They're a little bit lower. I tell them to try and touch that light. Now we don't have a lot of guys that can, unless you're Paul Mankey, who's our Washington sign safety, getting ready to go play at Washington. That dude Cole can walk up in here and touch the top of these lights.
Yeah, wipe the dust off the top of them.
Like, hey, Paul, man, can you grab that real quick? And jumps up there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's good to hear. Because all the things that you're talking about, we do here as well. Maybe different variations. Maybe it looks a little bit different. Everybody's kind of got their own little method to how things are done and coaching cues and whatnot. But that's good to hear as a guy on my end who is not a full-time strength and conditioning coach. Is doing things, hopefully the right way.
No, for sure.
And that's why I try to learn. That's why I try to go to clinics. That's why I'm talking to you right now. That's why I do these things and read as much as I can because I want to be in with the times.
Yeah, for sure.
But I don't want to do it just because I saw it on Instagram. I want to do it because there's a reason for it.
Don't be a Twitter strength coach.
Yeah, don't see something that looks cool on Twitter and then the next day you're throwing it into your workout just because it looked cool. I want my kids to do it too. No, like. Find a rhyme or reason. Find your method to your madness. If it fits and you saw it on Twitter, Instagram, awesome.
Good for you.
Great.
Yeah.
Apply it. Or, oh, cool. I'd like for my kids to be able to do that. I'm going to regress it a little bit. And then we're going to work on this. One thing that you said that kind of caught my attention, one of your hot takes, I think.
Yeah.
No bench press.
Yeah. Bench press.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Football coaches would be, man. So the reason why I don't bench press, especially at the high school level, is just the ego seemed to come out. Not so much for the girls, but then you run into the problem of like, as a female athlete, that 45-pound bench press like is like 110. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like, and we don't have any lighter bars than 45. So it's like, so we're coming in and we got 4 sets of 5 on bench press, and you can't do 2 or 3 reps with a 45-pound bar. So then now we got to regress you to dumbbells. That's
Mhm.
great, but then like, how long are we going to spend on those dumbbells before you can finally get under the bar? For my male athletes, typically football, and nobody's pushed back on this, and I think I've done a great job of explaining it. The egos come out, and so me and you are lifting. If me and you don't have the same bench press, let me start. Every time we bench press, everybody grabs a 45 and slaps that on,
Mhm.
right? Knowing they can't do a 45. Maybe I hit my 5 reps, and then your ego kicks in, knowing you should take the 45 off, maybe put a 35 on. Now you're trying to get your 5. You only get 3. Now your teammates are spotting you for the last,
The
4 or
reverse
5.
curling it up.
Yeah, and that triggers me because it's like, we got 4 sets of 5. That's 20 reps. I need your 20 reps. I don't need 17 and I get the other 3.
Mhm.
I need your 20 reps. And I tell kids this all the time. Would you rather get 20 snaps or 17? Oh, I'd rather get 20. Okay, well, so then why did you miss 3 reps on that bench press? And normally what happens is they crash and burn that first set. They maybe get 5 reps.
Mhm.
That second set, hey, throw a 10 on for me. Now you get 3. And I spot you the other 2. Now we're on our third set, and you're looking at that 155 like, ugh, you take some weight off. So now you go down and maybe you humble yourself and put on the appropriate weight. You put on a 35, but now you're doing 35s on each side, and you're struggling to get that. And now we're not moving it. I mean, I look at anything that is 4 or 5 reps should move fast.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah,
that should be
yeah.
your 60 to 70, 75%. So if we're at 5 reps, I'm assuming that's about 70% for you. It shouldn't be a grind, kicking your feet up, all crazy. And
Elbows are flaring.
yeah. So
Yeah.
what I got to a point, I mean, I love overhead press because I feel like it's just more practical. Again, going back to universal program,
Mhm.
I know that there's a lot of teams like your volleyballs, your baseballs that like to bench press. And if they do, it's like dumbbell bench, or if you have a neutral grip bar, which we don't have, they opt for that. So we have landmines. I'll do a half kneeling landmine shoulder press. And then from there, we'll progress to a split stance landmine shoulder press.
Yeah.
And then from there, we'll progress to a split stance push press. And then from there, we'll go to a split jerk.
Yeah.
Right. More dynamic.
Oh, yeah.
And
We do that as well.
I'll do the same thing with a barbell shoulder press. So we'll start sitting in the rack. We'll do a Z press. Legs are straight, feet together, basically an overhead press.
Mhm.
Then from a seated position, we'll go to a squat stance, or, some people call it squat stance. Some people, universal athletic position. But I want you to be in a position that you're most powerful in. So that's probably between hip width and shoulder width apart, right? Soft knees, so a little bit of bend in the knees, overhead press. Then from there, we'll go into a push press,
Mhm.
or depending on, again, the sport, track and field might start with a split stance overhead press, whereas volleyball might go to just a regular push press, just
Mhm.
because, if you watch them jump and approach the net, they'll take a big gather and then they'll bring their feet almost parallel and then jump.
Mhm.
Whereas track and field, all sports are unilateral, but track and field, that's more sport specific, right?
There it is.
So we'll go from Z press to standing overhead press to a variation of either a split stance push press or a regular push press. I've yet to get to push jerk just because I don't like the way the push press looks. And I tell my kids all the time, I want your lower body to generate power,
Mhm.
right? I want you to dip drive and be pressing that barbell based on how much force you're putting into the ground from your lower body, that if you open up your hands, that barbell is going to continue to move up. A lot of my kids either don't understand the concept or they get too heavy where they're not moving it that way.
Mhm.
So we've yet to graduate or progress to a split jerk. Also, talking about developing speed and power, do I need to split jerk my kids to develop that triple extension and that power? No, because we're still jumping and we're still sprinting. So truth be told, we'll probably just stick with push press for the rest of the year. Now, summertime rolls around. Yeah, I might be a little crazy,
Mhm.
right? And implement those things. But from a progression standpoint, I'm not really worried about that barbell split jerk. And so we prioritize either a single arm overhead press or some type of bilateral overhead push press.
Mhm.
But as far as bench press goes, I mean, I'm at a point now, it seems radical, but I might take all the benches out of my out of my weight room, just because outside of like, we don't step up on them, right? We got to get them reupholstered, but we don't do step ups on the benches. Dumbbell row. I mean, we do freehand dumbbell row where they take their forearm and rest it on their thigh and do their rows.
Okay.
Or they can put their hands on the catches on the side of the rack and do their rows. So I don't really use my benches outside of like a pigeon stretch or support for their hands to do a, dumbbell row.
Mhm.
Copenhagen hold is maybe another thing that I use them for. But outside of those three things, like we're not bench pressing.
Yeah.
I don't really incline anybody either. So if I got rid of my benches, I'd be just fine. And I know there's strength coaches out there that are like, oh my gosh, no bench press, getting rid of your benches. But it's like you said, keep the main thing. Like I'm trying to develop more, not even overhead strength. I want to just have healthy shoulders.
Yeah. That's a huge
and
problem,
have
especially
upper
in high
body
school
plyos.
athletes.
Yeah. So it's like, what would you rather have? That kid that bench presses 350, but his shoulder aches all the time,
Mhm.
or the kid that's able to overhead press right without any pain and have great shoulder mobility, internal and external rotation, and go out there and throw a baseball or a softball or spike a volleyball or reach above their head for a rebound pain free all year. Like
Mhm.
screw bench press numbers,
Yeah.
right? And so that's one reason. Now don't get me wrong, I do implement bench press, but what I do for football, so we live Monday, Tuesday. If football wants to bench press, we do bench press on Saturday, the day after a game. So
Okay.
kids are like, oh, I want to bench press. Okay, cool. Well, Saturday morning, we're here, we're doing our lift. I implement bench press. And even when I do that, I typically do close grip bench.
Mhm.
Because again, those egos come out and they got to put my hands in here. Like, take the 45 off, put a 25 on. Great.
Yeah.
So I'm getting out of it what I want. You're able to bench press in some way, shape, or form. But as far as like actual bench press, the only people that have bench press all school year has been football, and the only times they bench press were on Saturdays, the day after the game. We played for 12 weeks, so we bench pressed 12 times.
Yeah.
For the whole season. Everybody else again was doing some type of landmine press, split stance dumbbell press,
Mhm.
or a barbell overhead press. So I'm not a huge fan of. Don't get me wrong. I think it's important. When I was in college, I bench press all the time. But you're talking about more mature athletes that understand
Yeah.
it. Nobody is adding an extra 20, 30 pounds on front squat. Hey, we got 70%. Okay, I look at my sheet. My sheet's 185. Cool. Nobody's saying screw 185 and putting on 225.
Yeah.
But you tell them, hey, we got bench press today. Okay, your sheet says 135. They're going to throw that 25 on there at some point in time and try to hit 185.
Yep.
So I just put them in a position to be successful. I'm not even going to give you the opportunity to piss me off because you're lifting with your ego on bench press. And like I said, hurt yourself. And this off season, I did with football. We did close grip bench. I didn't like the way it looked. We did barbell incline. I liked it, but I didn't feel comfortable because the spotter was all uncomfortable because he's spotting the guy overhead and then he's having to pull the weight. So we did maybe bench press for a week, and then we transitioned to barbell incline. We did that for about 2 weeks, maybe 3. So for a month we used our benches for bench press and stuff. And then I was like, nah, we're not getting out of it what we need to. This is becoming partner bench press, partner incline, and not an actual lift. So I scrapped it and we went back to, I think we went right into our barbell overhead press, but standing instead of Z press. Normally, like I said, we'll do Z press first where we're seated, and then we'll go into standing. So yeah, we don't bench press. Baseball doesn't bench press. Wrestling doesn't bench press. Basketball, nobody bench press. If we do dumbbell.
Yeah.
And typically we'll do one arm.
Yeah.
We'll do one arm dumbbell
Same.
bench, or we'll do one arm dumbbell incline. I also don't have a huge variety of dumbbells. So that was another limiting factor is like equipment.
Yeah.
And that's why we do one arm. But again, we have landmines. So we crush landmine overhead presses, landmine push presses, and we normally superset that with like some type of band pull aparts or face pulls and stuff. And so again, I've been fortunate to not have any like shoulder injuries. And I just think about like a CYA, like if you're always bench pressing your kids and your kids are always having shoulder injuries, I'm not going to say it's necessarily the bench press that's causing it, but I would like to believe that, in my opinion, if you eliminate bench press and maybe do more single arm work or incorporate some type of like internal, external rotation, the shoulder injuries will go down.
Yep.
So I don't even give the kids an option. We don't really have any shoulder kids. If we do, it's your typical volleyball shoulder, hurt her shoulder, but it's because she dove for a ball and was externally rotated and hit the court. I can't prevent that.
Right.
Football, it's a collision sport. Your shoulders are going to hurt.
Yes.
Basketball, it's more of like my shoulders are tired, but then you're like, well, you were just shooting for an hour and a half,
Yeah.
my shoulders would be a little sore too, right? So I
Yeah.
try to eliminate any and all excuses that my kids would give me. We don't bench press. We single arm work, overhead press a lot, and use our landmines. And like I said, we do a lot of internal, external rotation and mobility work with shoulders, because I tell my kids, healthy shoulders are happy shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
So if your shoulders are healthy, you're probably feeling pretty good. When that shoulder's a little achy, or like with anything, that shoulder is a little achy. Now the elbow's a little achy. Now the forearm's a little tight, and you spend all your time doing this.
Yeah.
Well, let's take care of this and hopefully alleviate everything else underneath it. So, no, that's a good question. I know there's a lot of people like, oh, you don't bench press, and it's like,
no, it's giving me some things to think about. Definitely. And that's one thing that I'll say, you know, as someone who is, I guess, newer into this field, you know, the more time that I'm spending, the more that I'm realizing, like, it's okay to have to adjust.
Yeah.
It's okay to do things that are maybe a little bit against the grain of what you did and what you learned and what you know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so never, we talked about ego. Never be so egotistic and locked into your programming that it's actually doing a disservice to the kids. But no, we're going to stick with it because that's the way we're going to do it. No,
that's what we've always done.
There it is. We'll make it adjustments and stuff like that. I really, it is something that I kind of have taken into consideration since this past summer, and then going forward.
Yeah,
for sure.
So all my football coaches, you do not have to bench press to develop upper body strength. And if your offensive lineman bench press 300 pounds but can't do 10 push-ups, right? They're not strong.
You got problems.
You can call it a hot take all you want, but like, come on now. If your 270-pound offensive lineman benches 315 for 2 or 3 reps, but then they get down in a push-up position and they can't do 10 reps right there, he ain't as strong as you think he is.